Welcome to all of you. Today, I'll be talking about yoga, the various aspects of yoga, definitions of yoga, practices of yoga. These days, the word yoga is very cool. Very cool. And everybody claims that they practice yoga. The yoga mat has become a symbol of ultra-modernity. Yoga mat. And I was told that almost 3% of the world population practice yoga. That's a humongous number. Almost 210 million people across the world practice yoga. And the United States and Europe, the number goes almost double that rate. 6% of the population in the United States and Europe practice yoga. And the United Nations has declared June 21 as the International Day of Yoga. The yoga is practiced widely in the autocratic communist China as well as the theocratic Islamic Iran. Yoga is practiced widely. So India can be proud that yoga is the contribution of the Indian civilization to the world. And yoga is a wholesome practice for the body, for the mind, and for the spirituals. It's a wholesome practice. And it is inexpensive. You don't have to invest in the expensive gadgets like treadmill. It doesn't occupy any space. You need only little space to practice yoga. You don't have to drive to the park for a morning walk. These days I don't go for a morning walk. Though for the last 40 years I have been walking every day. But these days you can't go. So how do you keep your health? So in New York, most of you are living in a one-room apartment. There is no space for a treadmill there. How do you do your daily exercise? Practice yoga. It's inexpensive, with no side effects. Any age group can practice yoga. Young, old, middle-aged. Anybody can practice yoga. And so these are the advantages of yoga. And you don't even have to wear a mask. If you go outside, you have to wear a mask. Here you don't have to wear a mask when you practice yoga. And you don't have to keep social distance because in your room you are doing it. So I find a lot of advantage. Through yoga you are being responsible for your health. You don't have to go to a doctor. It's a preventive practice. You can enhance your immunity. So, but my task today is not to talk about yoga. My task today is to practice what is yoga. What is yoga? That's what I am going to concentrate. And of course, the yoga in Bhagavad Gita, that is our main topic today. And Bhagavad Gita says that Tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. Therefore be a yogi, not a bhogi. Bhogi means consumerist. Bhogi means who believes. It's a philosophy, it's an ideology. That my happiness depends upon what I consume, what I have. That is the ideology, philosophy of a bhogi, a consumerist. And bhogi become a rogi. Rogi means a sick person, you know that. The more you consume, the more you will be consumed. Whereas yoga says that your happiness that does not depend upon what you consume. Your happiness depends upon the less you consume. Of course, there is a threshold. You cannot reduce your consumption beyond a point. There is a Lakshmana Rekha. A threshold is there. So, Tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. Therefore, be a yogi, not a bhogi. This is the advocacy of Bhagavad Gita. And we are talking about the yoga in Bhagavad Gita. Sorry. And again, the Bhagavad Gita talks about Krishna. Krishna is the teacher in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna. Krishna is depicted as a Mahayogi, Yogeshwara, the master of yoga. That is one epithet of Krishna, Yogeshwara, the master of yoga. And he is teaching Bhagavad Gita. Tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. And one idea which excites me in the Bhagavad Gita is that Bhagavan says, Tasmad yogi bhavarjuna, and that exciting idea is that Bhagavan is Yogeshwara, the master of yoga. Yogamaya samavrataha. That's a very interesting, exciting idea in the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavan is Yogamaya samavrataha. The truth is covered by Yogamaya. What is Yogamaya? What is yoga there in that context? In that context, yoga is said as Gunanam yuktihi yogaha. Gunanam yukti, the play of gunas. We have already talked about gunas, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. They are dynamically interacting, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, and create a trellis of an illusion, a network, a trellis. And the truth or the Lord is veiled by these play of gunas. Not only is veiled by the play of gunas, he reveals his infinitude through the play of gunas. That's very interesting. It's a very mesmerizing phrase. Yogamaya samavrataha. Just as the clouds cover the sun, at the same time reveals the sun also. Otherwise, how will you see the clouds without the sun? The cloud is seen because of the sun. At the same time, the cloud covers the sun. Similarly, the play of the gunas between the material world and the mental world as considered a play of the gunas. So the Bhagavan reveals, the truth reveals itself. It's in infinitude through the play of the gunas. At the same time, because of the gunas, you don't see the truth, or you don't experience the truth. Let me put it that way. So that's a very exciting phrase. As an introduction to today's talk, I am bringing these exciting ideas to you. And the word yoga is used in many meanings in the Bhagavad Gita. It can be karma yoga, sankhya yoga, bhakti yoga, and then jnana yoga, japa yoga. So in many words, in many meanings, the word yoga is used. So I am not going to all these details. There are plenty to talk about yoga. I am not going to. I am going to see what is the core meaning of yoga and the various ways yoga is used in the Bhagavad Gita. And also Bhagavan says, to practice yoga, you have to be a moderate person. Moderation is very, very important. Not too much sleep, too much work, too much excitement, or too much exercise. Yuktahara viharasya, yukta jeshtasya karmasu, yukta sapnava bodhasya, yogo bhavadi dukkhaha. That yoga is moderation. A moderate life is yoga. He says. Don't go to the extreme. And the main theme of Bhagavad Gita is moderation, wasn't it? I have been talking about the third way. Don't go to the extremes. beyond the middle path, the Buddha's path, or the third way, or the golden mean, as it was said in the Greek philosophy. So moderation is yoga. So, what is yoga? That's what I am going to talk about. And when you talk about yoga in Bhagavad Gita, the first thought that comes to our mind is this particular sloga. Karmanne vadhigaraste ma bhaleshu gadajana ma karma bhalade durbu madhe sangosta karmani. You have a choice over what you do, but you have no choice over what will be the outcome of your actions. You know that fourth statement. You can choose your action, but you cannot control the outcome of your action. That does not mean you can wash your hands off the outcome of your actions. What Bhagavan says is, your actions, you have a certain control over that, but you have to act responsibly, you have to act thinking of the consequences within the available data. Considering all this, you choose your action, but thereafter you have no control. It is something like, let me give a very interesting example. You go to the fourth floor of the building, and then you look onto the ground. Then sometime you have an impulse to jump, isn't it? You can choose where to jump or not. You can do that. You can choose. That's within your choice. But once you jump, then you have no control. You will fall 36 feet per second. Gravity will take over. You have no control over that. Halfway, if you think, why did I do it? I want to change my decision. It's not possible. So Bhagavan says 4 things. As part of the Karma Yoga, you have certain control over what you do, but you have no control over the consequences, because there are several factors which influence the outcome of your action, or which you have no control. At the same time, don't feel bad if something bad happens. Don't think you are the cause of the result of your action. You still feel good about yourself. Because something bad happens, you take it upon yourself and you say, I am responsible. Actually, you are not responsible. The whole universe is responsible for the outcome of your actions. And Bhagavan also says, don't remain inactive because of the uncertainties involved in an action. Don't be inactive. Always be active. So that particular sloga is considered the defining sloga in the Bhagavad Gita about yoga. But I don't think that's the most important sloga. So let us see what are the various definitions of yoga in the Bhagavad Gita. So I talked about 7 kinds of yogas in the Bhagavad Gita. What are those 7 kinds of yogas depicted in the Bhagavad Gita? So first Bhagavan says, which you all have heard, yoga karmasu kaushalam. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. Yoga is dexterity in action. Dakshatvam in action. Dexterity. What is dexterity in action? An ability to invoke your inner happiness through action. That is the dexterity that Bhagavan talks about. An ability to invoke, to express your inner happiness. Dexterity in action. It can also mean yoga is pursuing excellence in action. Pursuing common good in action. Loka sangraha. That is the meaning of yoga karmasu kaushalam. So whenever you act in this world, and you cannot avoid activities, because you are always interacting with the world. So when you act, and human beings are condemned to be active, that is Bhagavad Gita has talked about earlier in the 3rd chapter. You cannot avoid activity, you cannot avoid interaction, you cannot live in just an island. Of course you can live, but that doesn't explore your full potential. So yoga means pursuing excellence, beauty, excellence, common good, justice, equality through your activities. That's the meaning of yoga in that particular sloka. Buddhi yukto jahadiha ubhe sugrada dushkude tasmad yoga yujyasva yoga karmasu kaushalam. So I am taking that particular piece from that sloka. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. This is what you have to remember. Yoga is pursuing excellence, beauty, common good, justice, equality. And I may add a new word. You are pursuing green progress. Why not? Green progress. Environmentally friendly progress. Then you are a yogi. Otherwise you are a bhogi. Isn't it? You are consuming and encouraging everybody to consume with all modern propaganda tactics. You are making everybody consume and exploit the nature. And we have come to a dead end now. So yoga is green progress. Your activities should be such that you don't affect the balance of the nature. So, pursuing excellence. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. Now the word kaushalam is a very interesting word. Dexterity or kaushala, that choice of that word. Kaushala, that word comes from the kusha grass. Kusha, the grass, the particular grass, its blade is very sharp. Kusha grass. So in the ashram, when you join the ashram, you have to do a lot of rituals. For the rituals, you have to pluck this kusha grass. So brahmacharis are deployed to pluck this kusha grass. And they cut their fingers because of the sharpness of the edge of the grass. So over a period of time, you become dexterous in plucking the kusha grass without hurting your fingers. So similarly, yoga means an ability to be active in the world without getting hurt psychologically. You have to be active, maintain your relationship, take responsibilities and commit and you will be very committed person. You cannot run away. So when you are engaged in the world, whether it's in the office or the home or wherever you are, you always feel hurt. Nobody is appreciating me. Nobody loves me. This is not a place for me. These kind of thoughts come. So an ability to involve in the world and engage in all the activities without getting hurt, without taking that psychological load, remaining calm and cool. So these are the meaning of yoga. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. Yoga is dexterity in action. So action become a tool, activity become a means for you to explore and express your potential. I have been repeating it again and again, this particular idea. Activity is not a source of suffering. Activity is a source of enhancing your quality of life. Unless you are active, you cannot enhance the quality of your life. So please make it yoga karmasu kaushalam. And for that, you must be buddhi yuktaha. You must be established in the understanding. Knowledge is important, especially self-knowledge. And what is the self-knowledge? That I am a source, I am happiness. That is what is called self-knowledge. I am happiness. I don't have to seek happiness out in the world. So be established in that understanding. My nature is happiness. I don't have to seek in the world outside. And according to Bhagavad Gita, our ultimate pursuit to be a happy person. A happy, wholesome, healthy, loving person. And that I am already. So with that idea, buddhi yuktaha, jahadi iha ubhe sugrata dushkride. And when you are established in that self-knowledge, then you transcend the binaries of life, we say. What are the binaries? Sukha, dukkha, pleasure, pain, success, failure, profit, loss. All those binaries which is buffeting your life now. you go beyond those binaries and be established in your natural self. So he says, Buddhi yukto jahadiha ubhe sugrida dushkrude. Both good and bad you transcend. Both the binaries. There are many binaries, good, bad, success, failure, profit, loss, praise, criticism. A yogi is never affected by criticism. Of course, the whole world will criticize you. When you are active, the world is going to criticize you. When you are inactive, nobody will bother about it. That's why some people say, I want to retire and sit quiet. Even when you retire and sit quiet, your own inner conscience will criticize you. Useless person, never made anything in life. Isn't it? That you have got self-censoring happens. It is not just the world criticize you. The worst critic is within you. Because you are always comparing yourself with others. So Bhagavan says, be active in this world and don't remain inactive, but at the same time, don't be upset by the criticism of the world. Praise and criticism should not affect you. That's why going beyond the binaries. And then you are able to be involved in the world without getting affected by what you get from the world. So buddhi yukto jahadiha ubhe sugrada dushkrude. So when you are happy, you expand your field of operation. You feel a lot of space around you. When you are unhappy, you feel the space is shrinking. That inner leisure is lost. So keep your inner leisure and engage in the world. So buddhi yukto jahadiha ubhe sugrada dushkrude tasmad yoga ijasva yoga karmasu kavshadam. That is the operative sentence there. Yoga is pursuing excellence, beauty. I repeat, excellence, beauty, common good, justice, equality, freedom through action, he says. That is one definition of yoga. Yoga karmasu kavshadam. So reflect on that. You have to reflect how dexterous I can be in the world, how dexterously I can remain and active in this world. So, activity is very, very important for a yogi. Generally, your idea of a yogi is somebody who sits like a piece of wood, isn't it? Shushka vrikshavad. The yogi sits cross-legged and still and shaking his nose and breathing like a dragon. That's your idea of a yogi. But Bhagavan's idea is not that. Bhagavan says yogi has to be very active in this world, taking challenges, moving on, taking risk, but absolutely calm. And there is one phrase used in the Bhagavad Gita, Avigamba Yoga, he says. And a yogi has to be still inward, but active outward. Mobility in stability, that is the phrase used. Mobility in stability. You are mobile, but you are stable inward. So Bhagavan wants a yogi to be active. Yoga karmasu kavshadam. So that is one definition of yoga. The second definition of yoga is Yogastha kuru karmani. These are all from the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Yogastha kuru karmani sankam tektva dhananjaya siddhi siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. Please pardon me for quoting these slogas, because that's how Bhagavad Gita explains it. It says Yogastha kuru karmani sankam tektva dhananjaya siddhi siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. Second definition. First definition was pursuing excellence in work, in interactive spaces. Second definition of yoga is more mental. He says, Samatvam yoga uchyate. Your ability to remain equanimous all the time. You are not disturbed. As I told you earlier, success and failure should not disturb you psychologically. You have got a mental muscle you have developed, so that nothing can affect you. Samatvam yogastha kuru karmani Sangam tektva dhananjaya. Don't worry about the fruits of your actions, because you already know you have no control over it. So don't worry about the fruits of the actions. And the fruits of action should not define your identity. You may be a failure in a certain activity, but that should not define your identity. A failure happens, don't take yourself to be Mr. Failure or Miss Failure. That is something which happens to me. That should not affect me. That virus should not affect me. The failure virus should not affect you. Your immunity should be so high. Nor should successes should get into your head. I am very successful, you go around puffed up. Success should make you humble. Failure should not make you strong. That is the meaning of education, a cultured person, according to Bhagavad Gita. Success makes you humble, you share your success with everybody. In failure, you say the buck stops here. So failure should make you strong and deep. Success should make you humble. Then you become a yogi. It's a psychological state. Yoga is a psychological state. Not just a physical exercise only. It is a psychological state where you don't get flustered. You're strong. You develop your mental muscles. You can face the world with dignity and equanimity. Yoga. So first definition was yoga karma sukhavishalam. Second definition is samatvam yoga uchyate. Yoga is equanimity, balanced mind. You are not affected by what happens as a result of your work. Nothing can upset you. You can always keep a smiling face. So let me put it that way. A smiling face is yoga. Actually, there is smiling yoga also. If you can every day, you go into front of the mirror, look into the mirror and smile for 10 minutes. That is a good yoga practice, I tell you. Because when you smile, you relax. Make it a belly laughter. When it's a belly laughter, you relax better. So smiling yoga. Keep smiling. Don't get flustered. Don't get affected. Because when you get affected, then you lose yourself. Then you behave like a fool. It distorts your perceptions. And your judgment is affected as a result of that. So nothing should affect you. You should be your own person. The world should not affect your performance or self-identity. So second definition is samatvam yoga uchyate. Yoga means equanimity of mind. So let me put it this way. Let me connect these two definitions. While you are focused on your work, which is very important, all the time you are involved something or other unless you are sleeping. All the time you are involved, either cooking or cleaning or discussing or debating or driving or working in your backyard or taking care of your kids or doing exercise. All the time you are involved in doing something. Even if you are sitting quiet, you are thinking something, planning something. So Bhagavan says, focused work is yoga. Whether you are a mathematician or a scientist or a driver or a cook, you are to focus on your work. So if you can cook a good sambar or make a good cake, I would call you a yogi. Sambar yogi, of course. Cake yogi, of course. If you can make a good product, something which is useful, something which is beautiful, something which is inexpensive, something which is durable, something which can satisfy a human need, then you are a good yogi. Then you are a yogi. At the same time, when you do this, don't expect anything from the world. The world may criticize you. The world may say, no, I can do a better job than this guy. That should not affect you. Keep your mind calm. There is always light at the end of the tunnel. Now you may be feeling you are going through a dark chamber. But at the end of the day, you will have the last laugh. Have that idea. Don't get frustrated. So yoga, samatvam yoga uchyate. Certain mastery over your mind, your emotions is yoga. Yoga is not only a mastery of the physical body, yoga is also a mastery of your emotions, your hormonal responses. By practice, you can do that. Ultimately, at the end of the day, if you are not a happy person, of what use, what avail of all your success in the world, all your accomplishment in the world? At the end of the day, if you are a miserable person, what is the use? So he says, samatvam yoga uchyate. Your mind should be always equanimous. Don't feel a loser. You're always a gainer. You always learn something from the success and failures in life. So two things. Yoga is focused work, and when you are focused on your work, your mind is disturbed because of the outcome of the work. Will I make it? Will I not make it? Will I be the first to make it? Those kind of thoughts disturb your mind. Or will I get enough appreciation? Will somebody take away my work, the result of my work, especially in research and all that? You don't know who is going to come first, or in business. So therefore, keep your mind calm under all these circumstances. Oh, this is very difficult. It's not difficult. Mind can be under your control. That is the only control you can have. You cannot control the world. You can control your mind. You know, you can choose what responses you have to create to the outcome, to the world outside. You have control over your responses. Most of the time we are reacting. So have a control over your responses. That is ultimate freedom. You cannot decide what happens in the world. You can decide how you respond to what happens in the outer world. That emotional intelligence we must cultivate. It's something which you can cultivate. So, yoga karmasu kaushalam samatvam yoga uchyate. Two definitions. One is with reference to the outside world. Second is with reference to yourself, your own mind. You can control. Some people say, I have no control over the mind. That is an escapism. You can develop control over your mind. You are not a helpless person that way. The third definition of yoga is Shruti vipradivannatte yadhastasthi nishala samadho vajala buddhihi tada yogam avaksasi. When your mind is established in Samadhi, Samadhi means the infinite self, infinite consciousness. When your mind is rooted in that infinite consciousness and draw your energy from there, not just from your physical self or emotional self or intellectual self. These are all limited. Physically you are a limited person. Emotionally you can be exhausted and drained away. Intellectually you can be confused, but there is a spiritual dimension. Strike your roots in that spiritual infinite consciousness and then draw your energy from there, which is inexhaustible, which is infinitely intelligent, which is more beautiful. So, samadho vajala buddhihi. Be rooted in that Samadhi. Samadhi means Atman, the infinite self, that oceanic consciousness. Then you become a yogi. Samadho vajala buddhihi tada yogam avaksasi. So three definitions. One definition is focused work. Second definition is when you are focused on your work, you can be disturbed mentally, thinking about the outcome of the work, or thinking about your own inability to do a good job. So these should not disturb you. So focused work, equanimous mind, and your buddhi, your intellect, deeply rooted in the infinite self. Then when these three capabilities are harmonized or harnessed in your life, then you become a complete yogi. In the modern language, I can say IQ, EQ, and SQ. IQ means your ability to focus on the world, worldly activity. EQ, your ability to keep your mind calm. SQ is your ability to tap into the infinite self, infinite consciousness that you are. And these three abilities, capabilities should be harnessed simultaneously. Not that when you are active in the world, you lose control over your mind and you get uprooted from the self. So you are active in the world, your mind is calm, and you are deeply rooted in the self. You are able to invoke the infinite power of the self. When you can bring all these three capabilities, the IQ, SQ, and EQ, then you become a perfect yogi or a Mahayogi. These are the three definitions of yoga. For example, when you are driving the car, that itself can be converted into a spiritual yogic Samadhi experience. When you're driving the car, you are focusing on the driving, isn't it? On the road. Is somebody jumping across? Is there any manhole or a pothole? Or is there any bump there? You are focused when you are driving on the road. At that time, you should not close your eyes, because I have to be yogi while I am driving. You don't have to close your eyes. You can keep your eyes open. So focus on the road. At the same time, keep your mind calm. And let your intellect be focused on the self, the Atman. So this kind of a driving become an opportunity for you to express your infinite self. Driving become a joy ride, a happy experience. Cooking become a happy experience. Discussing, politics or business deals, that also become a happy experience. Everything become a Samadhi experience if you can harness these three skills or capabilities in your action. Every moment become a Samadhi. Samadhi means invoking your infinite joy in your activities. So therefore, please keep in mind these three definitions of yoga. Yoga karmasu kaushalam, yoga samatvam yoga uchyate, and then samadho ajala buddhi, tada yogam avatsasi. Therefore, concluding all this, keeping all this in mind, there is another definition for yoga in the Bhagavad Gita. Tam vidya dukkha samyoga viyogam yogam uchyate. So we must know etymologically, yoga has 4 or 5 meanings. Etymology. Yoga coming, yoga, yojane yoga. Yoga is uniting, bringing things together. That's one meaning of yoga. Uniting people, bringing ideas together, bringing people, belong to different cultures, traditions, ethnic groups and racial groups, bringing all those together. He is a yogi. Please understand, there are got a political and various dimensions of yoga. If you can bring people together from diverse backgrounds, a person who can stitch things together, not snip or cut things, stitch things together, is called a yogi. So, bringing, yojane yoga. Another definition of viyojane yoga. Yojana means disconnecting. Disconnecting from certain things. For example, when you watch the TV, suddenly something stupid comes, then you should be able to switch off the TV. Viyojane. Suppose you are on the dining table, something which is not agreeable to you, that is on the dining table. You are able to control yourself. This is not for me. Then you become a yogi. No, it's freely available. Let me gorge on that. Then later you feel bad. That is not yoga. An ability to say no also is yoga. An ability to say yes, that also is yoga. So viyojane is yoga. So in this particular sloka, that meaning is yoga. Viyojane is yoga. Ability to detach, ability to watch, ability to say no. Some of the people, they say, it is difficult for me to say no. No, that means the lack of discrimination, lack of judgment. A yogi is a good judge of situations and people. With one look, he must be able to judge and act on his judgment and learn from his mistakes or improve upon his successes. So, the fourth definition of yoga is dukkha samyoga viyogam yogam uchyate. At this point, we are habituated to suffer. Suffering has become our habit. If I ask you, why are you suffering? What's your problem? Swamiji, everything is okay with me. My children are very good. I have enough money in the bank. I am living in a very good locality. My husband is very nice. Then what's your problem? I don't know. I don't feel good. I just don't feel good. Everything is fine. Everything is okay. I cannot put my finger on my problem. Are you healthy? Yes, I am healthy also. Then what is your problem? I just don't know. This habit to become unhappy, depressed, agitated, the habit to see only the thorns and not the roses, seeing the empty part of the glass, that foreboding thoughts, negativity, we are habituated to that. And when you live in that, that is called dukkha space. We are living in that dukkha space, a limited space. You feel suffocated and hemmed in. Bhagavan says, this is only a mental construct. It has no actual reality. You are living in your own mental constructs. That little space, dukkha. Dukkha means a little space. And we are there. So your ability to detach from that and observe it. So dukkha samyoga viyogam yogam uchyate. According to Bhagavad Gita, your dukkha, your suffering is a habit. It has become a habit for you. And you must wake up, sir. Wake up. And move from the limited space of your little ego to the limitless space of consciousness, of joy, happiness. That movement is very, very important. So movement from samsara to nirvana, movement from dukkha to sukha, movement from little space and coming to the vast space of consciousness. It's a choice you have to make. So dukkha samyoga viyogam. At this point you are attached to dukkha, attached to the most difficult things, and get out of that and realize your full real nature. That also is called yoga. So moving from the ego space to the eco space, let me put it that. Ego space is suffering. And you have put yourself into that. Because you are leading an unanalyzed life. When you lead an analyzed life, reflective life, you will understand that this is not your fate. So living in that dukkha space is suffering, and coming out of that, flying out of that, is called yoga. Meaning a yogi will tell himself or herself that I am not going to suffer anymore. I am not going to suffer anymore. You declare your freedom from suffering. When you declare your freedom from suffering, then you become a yogi. Dukkha samyoga viyogam yoga uchyate. Yoga is dissociation from your habitual association with the suffering. Not only that you suffer, you give a justification for that also. I am suffering because of this. I am suffering because of that person. I am suffering because of my genetic problem. I am suffering because of government or whatnot. Nobody is responsible for your suffering except yourself. So declare your freedom from suffering. You dissociate from your habitual association with suffering. So dukkha samyoga viyogam yoga uchyate. Another way you can say your identification with the body, mind, ego complex with the source of suffering. Watch it, look at it, then you are no more suffering. It may look a difficult task, isn't it? It may look a little difficult, but when you practice it, Swarpamapyasya dharmasya trayade mahadobhaya. Little bit of practice will bring you rich reward, he says. First of all, don't convince yourself you are born to suffer. Don't convince yourself. Don't live in that mental construct. You are not born to suffer. You are born to enjoy life. Convince yourself. Tell yourself that. Because what you say, what you think, that you become. So whenever that feeling comes, I am suffering, immediately you tell yourself, no, that's not my fate. My fate is to be a joyous, happy individual. You may say it is just an auto-suggestion. It is not just an auto-suggestion. It is not a brainwashing statement. It is something true to your real nature. You have deviated from that. So dukkha samyoga viyogam yoga uchyate. Dissociating from your association, habitual association with the dukkha, suffering, is called yoga. So how many definitions now? First is pursuing excellence in work is yoga. Second is while you are doing that, keeping the mind calm is yoga. Third is drawing your energy from your infinite consciousness is yoga. So all those things should happen simultaneously. You are working in the world, keeping your mind calm, drawing your energy. So every activity becomes a source of exploring and expressing your infinite consciousness, your love, your happiness. Every activity. And thus, you will be able to detach from your attachment to suffering and enjoy your natural bliss and beatitude. Dukkha samyoga viyogam yoga uchyate. The fourth definition. The fifth definition, Krishna says, Pashyame yogam aishwaram. Pashyame yogam aishwaram. When you live in that kind of consciousness, which I have explained, then every activity becomes a creative activity, creative experience. Bhuda bhrinna, naja bhutastaha, mamatma bhuda bhavana. Pashyame yogam aishwaram. Look at my creation, Bhagavan says. He has created the whole universe. He or she, whatever word, pronoun you want to use. And while the Lord creates the world, He is calm and quiet, He says. Ekamshena sthidam maya. With an infinitesimal speck of His energy, He has created the whole universe. Similarly, a yogi can involve in activities and become tremendously creative, infinitely, prodigiously creative. A creative work you enjoy because you pour yourself into that work. So an ability to become infinitely active without feeling exhausted is called yoga. You can work the whole day. At the end of the day, you feel as fresh as a flower and as fit as a fiddle. That ability is called yoga. These days, what do we say? We don't do anything, but still we say, I am tired. What are we doing all this day? Nothing. You have done nothing, but still you are tired. Here Bhagavan says, a yogi, his work becomes a creative exploration of his potential. And he's always creative. Work becomes a recreation for a yogi. And Krishna quotes himself. He says, look at me. For me, work is a recreation, a play, a joyous self-expression. And the more you work, the more you have, the more you explore. So your happiness is not what you get from work. Your happiness is the very experience of pouring yourself out through these works. Pashyame yogamaisharam. Bhagavan says, that is how I work in this world. That is how I create this world. So yoga is experiencing that supreme creativity is yoga. I hope you can feel what I am saying. Because generally our idea is that I will retire and sit quiet. That's not a yogi's attitude. You may retire means retiring, isn't it? Real meaning of retire means retiring. So when you retire, you are moving from one theatre activity to another theatre activity. It is impossible to sit quiet. Just as your heart beats constantly, you breathe constantly, you have to work all the time. Of course, nature of your work may change. But the fact is that you must always be active in some way or other. One must be active. One must keep one's relationship with the world. Because it is through the stimulus and response process you are able to respond, you are able to explore yourself. So yoga, Pashyame Yogamaiswaram, Bhagavan says. Another interesting slogan in Bhagavad Gita, Ananyachindayando mam yajana parivasade, Tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogatshemam vahami. Yoga means living in this world like a child. Living in this world like a child. What's a child's attitude? Parents are there, they will take care of everything. The child is always playful. Child may help the parents sometimes. Sometimes they may not help. Like a child. Without any worry, without any care. Parents are there, living in the tremendous sense of security. Because my parents, they will take care of me. So that idea, live carefree, relaxed, with that tremendous confidence and trust in yourself and your surroundings. I'll be okay. Don't you say that? If you are okay, everything is okay. If you are not okay, nothing is okay. Nor will you allow anybody to be okay. So that feeling that I am okay, I am like a child. So recovering your child in you, which you lost in the process of living in this world. Become an old man with all worries, all the lines on your forehead, and the bulge under your eyes. That is not yoga. Yoga is recovering, retrieving the lost child in you, that innocence, that beauty, that freedom, that carefreeness. Then you become a yogi. He says, the Bhagavan says, Ananyachindayando mam yajana parivasade, Tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogatshemam vahami. It's a promise by the Lord. I will take care of you. I will be responsible. Tasmaduttishthagam dayuthaya pratanishaya. I have won this war for you, Bhagavan says. I have made sure everything is okay for you. This world is bounteous. Resources are there, provided you live the life of yoga. As Gandhi said, God has provided for man's human need, but not for his greed. So that feeling of relaxed, carefree, childlike innocence, that also is called yoga. Ananyaschindayanto ma yajana parivasave tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahami. A child has no enemy. The child can play even with a snake or a dog. But if you and I play with a snake, that is the last day that you live on this planet, isn't it? A child, because of innocence. So recovering that lost child in you, that innocence, is called yoga. Feel okay as you are. So these are the definitions of yoga in the Bhagavad Gita. Now, of course, I told you Bhagavad Gita talks about karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, japa yoga, where many types of yogas are described. And there is Patanjali yoga also described in the Bhagavad Gita. Patanjali yoga. And what is Patanjali's definition of yoga? Patanjali says, yoga chittavritti nirodha. Nirodha means stopping the flow of thoughts, restraining the traffic of thought. Our mind has become a heavy, the thoughts are coming from nowhere and bothering you, and you are not acting upon all those thoughts. Thoughts have become worry. You are not thinking actually, you are only worrying. So stop worrying is Patanjali's yoga. What will happen? What will happen to me? What is in store? When this pandemic will end? Who will win the next election in the United States? What China is doing now? All the time we are worrying. So Patanjali said, stop worrying. Stop worrying. If that word, that powerful word, command from the Lord Krishna is stop worrying. The yoga is stopping the traffic of thought, the incessant traffic of thought, because of which you don't sleep, you cannot concentrate on your eating, or you cannot play with your children or grandchildren. All the time you are worrying. So stop the traffic of thought. Take a long, deep breath. When you take a long, deep breath, Ashtanga yoga also is yoga. Ashtanga yoga says sit down somewhere quiet, breathe deeply, and stop that incessant flow of thoughts in our mind. It's very draining. It doesn't produce any result. It's very draining, those kind of thoughts. So that's another definition of yoga. Yoga chittavritti nirodha. And when you stop the traffic of thought, you will be able to choose your thought. At this point you are not able to. At this point you are not able, because you are in a crowd. In a crowd you have no choice. Isn't it? In a crowded street, you have no choice of driving. You have to follow the flow. Here you will be able to choose your thought. So an ability to stop the traffic of thought, stop worrying, and start living as they say. This is another definition of yoga. So let me recapitulate. The first definition was focus on your work. Wherever you are, whatever you are doing, You may be a scientist doing research, you may be a mathematician, you may be a driver, or you may be a cook, you may be a scavenger. Whatever you are doing, the ability to focus and produce the best outcome of that work is called yoga. Second definition was keeping your mind quiet while you are focused on your work. Don't worry about the outcome. If you do a good job, good outcome will come. If the good outcome is not coming, it will be a learning experience. Take it as a learning experience, but keep your mind calm. When the mind is calm, you get a 360-degree perspective of the issues. When the mind is disturbed, your perception becomes biased. When the mind is calm, you are able to see everything involved in it, isn't it? When you are driving and you are disturbed, you don't see somebody jumping across. But when you are calm, you can see everything. So, when we say the mind is calm, you are able to bring different perspective in decision making and judgment. That's another advantage of keeping the mind calm. Different perspective can be brought in to shine upon your choice making, your judgments. So the calm mind, that is advantage. Otherwise your mind is partially focused or disturbed. As a result of that, you are not able to bring all this perspective. And quickly it should happen in the mind. So the brain can function on those three levels. It can focus, it can have this 360-degree perspective. At the same time, it is very much rooted in itself, in that infinite consciousness. Brain becomes a channel of that infinite consciousness. So those three things are very important. And thus, every moment in your life become an experience of Samadhi or spiritual enlightenment. Every moment. You don't have to sit in a room cross-legged and all that. Of course, initially you may have to do that. It's something like learning swimming. When you learn swimming, when you start learning swimming, you need a particular swimming pool, isn't it? You go there, first you jump into the shallow part of the swimming pool, then you move to the deep part of the swimming pool. Slowly, you learn that art. After learning the art, then you can jump anywhere, isn't it? You can even jump into the Pacific Ocean. Of course, initially you have to sit and meditate, no doubt about that. But when this art develops in you, then you can go anywhere. You can be a yogi under all conditions. So these three skills are very, very important. Then you will be able to detach yourself from the habit of feeling bad and inadequate and all that. And finally, you feel like a child. Child does not mean, it's not childishness. It is childlikeness, so to say. That is divine. That childlikeness is divinity. They live in that awareness. And that is the ultimate. So Bhagavan says, when you live in that awareness, you create prosperity, you create justice, you create peace, you create total satisfaction in your life. Tasmad uttishta gandeya, yudhaya kritanishchaya. That is the final yoga. Bhagavan says, therefore, get up and fight. Fight in this. Fight does not mean you take a sword and cut each other's throat. That's not the idea of fight. Do what you are supposed to do. Depending upon your age, your skills, your aptitude, you be active in this world. Regardless, your age also, you should be age sensitive. If you are 90, don't go for a marathon run, not necessary. According to age sensitive, your aptitude, your training, accordingly you make your choices and live in the world. thus become a perfect yogi. If you can harness all these ideas, then you become a perfect yogi. So this is Bhagavad Gita's idea of yoga, a very active, dynamic individual, dynamically interacting with the world, feeling responsible for what happens, doing his might to improve the world and not feeling miserable. I am not up to that. The world can never improve. That is not the idea of a yogi. Yogi is always positive, and yogi is always active. Yogi is always sharing his bliss and happiness with the whole world. So that is my take of yoga in the Bhagavad Gita. And of course, different words are used to emphasize the same idea. When we talk about yoga, these 4 yogas come to your mind. Karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, and hatha yoga, or patanjali yoga, or ashtanga yoga. The ultimate meaning of yoga is, put it simply, this is my fault line, my lullaby. The ultimate meaning of yoga is to live as a happy person in this world, with a smile on your face, plastered on your face all the time. Relax. Then you discover who you are. So with that knowledge, live in this world. That's the meaning of yoga. So thank you very much. So next topic will be values for enlightenment. What are the values that we should practice to live in that state of enlightenment? So those will be the topic next time. Value means something you have to practice. Yoga also means practice. So what are the values? When I live, what to eat, how to respond. And so a value is kind of oil to the mind. In interaction with the world, the mind becomes sometimes jarring. It loses its flexibility. So you have to put in these values. So what are those values, norms, that I have to practice while I am living in this world? So I'll be talking about that in the next talk. Thank you very much.